Sunny Radio, where it's always in the 80s. Thank you so much for listening to another edition of Partners in Education, brought to you by Keystone Treatment Center. And from Keystone Treatment Center, we have Eric Miller. Eric, how are you, sir?
Well, I'm great, John. How are you, sir?
Very good. It's been a while since you and I have had a chance to do this, and I'm really excited to visit with you again. And we've got some really fun things we're going to talk about today. But first of all, let's talk about the topic, because this month's topic is relapse is not a requirement of good recovery. And we're going to be visiting later in the program with Brad Patterson. I had a chance to meet with him last year for another Partners in Education. I remember visiting with him, sharp guy, and we're excited to have him as part of the program tomorrow.
Well, yeah, I mean, in terms of our new post-treatment engagement project, Brad was just the perfect candidate to kind of lead that charge, and, really looking forward to kind of, pulling back the curtain on kind of where we're currently at in the kind of the rollout of this new initiative. I think, to me, it's probably one of the most important ventures that we could invest our time and energy and resources into. I think I've believed that for many years, and the more that we travel, and I travel around the country and I meet with folks, when we talk about the one thing that we could do to positively impact the outcomes of the people that utilize our services and the families, is how do we engage them after they leave our facility? What kinds of support, what kind of encouragement, what kind of accountability measures could we put in place that actually make a difference? And it's kind of a national trend right now for a lot of our paying sources, as it should be, is that people are wondering, with the costs of treatments not being low, are we providing value? Are we making a difference? Are we impacting the issue for individuals that utilize our service and their families? Are we making a difference? And I think that, certainly we need to measure those outcomes, and there's kind of a national push for that right now, John, from both, all our commercial insurance payers, and but we're even going to take it a step further here. Is I'm just wondering, with all the access that we have, as you know, channels of communication, ways to reach people is changing almost daily. I know you know that from being in the radio business, and how your program and whole marketing strategy has changed. Well, we also have access to a lot of these channels, and could we utilize those not just to engage people post-treatment, but to measure how they're doing, but could we actually positively change the dynamics post-discharge and increase our positive outcomes? And nobody has been talking about that. And to me, I think it's not only a possibility. I think it's an imperative that we try, because all research and I've got 30 years in this field. I know that the most critical moments for an individual and their families that are beginning this road of addiction recovery come within that first year or two outside of our facilities when they're in our direct care. And can we be there? Can we build up enough support, encouragement around them to survive those moments, to have something to fall back on, still being, a part of serving those people at those junctures? And the answer to that, as far as I'm concerned, is yes. And we're going to do the best to find out and build this out. So we're just, I get excited about all these partners in education. It's a chance for us to all kind of gather together, and we give people hopefully good enough content there that it can make a difference for how they serve people. All the counselors that take part in this, and licensed therapists and social workers, and that we can help them along that line. But I'm extra excited about this month just because we've been working, and Brad's been working so hard to kind of build this and roll this process out at Keystone. And I just have nothing but, just very high expectations that it's going to make a huge difference for a lot of people we serve.
Absolutely. And in just a bit, we're going to be visiting with Brad Patterson. He's a post-treatment engagement coordinator with Keystone. We're going to talk to him about the program tomorrow, Partners in Education, and we'll go through the 7 essential elements of recovery. So I'm excited to visit with him a little more in just a moment. Before we do that, we've got some kind of cool news to share here on the program about Partners in Education and a big expansion that's going to be happening network-wide. Let's talk a little bit about that, Eric.
Yeah, I mean, we're kind of ahead of the curve. You know, within the Acadia Healthcare Network, I mean, it's just a huge, we cut a huge swath, you know, not only across the U.S., but across really Europe. We have a huge footprint and a lot of facilities and a lot of people doing great things. And, you know, part of Keystone's, you know, one of the real advantages of Keystone is that we're a part of that bigger network. Well, you know, and a few things up here in South Dakota, we're always late adopters. We're kind of known for that. We're the last ones to get, you know, the Apple 6 and 7. We all drive around with those old phones, you know. But, you know, we've actually kind of led the charge on this delivering of, and not webinars, but live educational, interactive two-way, bringing it to people not only locally but distance. And we kind of got ahead of the curve with Acadia, and they noticed, you know, over our last year of programming and working with you, and to where now they were building this out to go really countrywide through our affiliates, our sister facilities throughout the country, that Partners in Education is going to be available for all the, you know, the people we serve in those areas too. And it sounds simple. I think you also know from your experience that it is a huge undertaking to try to build out a system of delivery that is both stable and high quality. You know, the bandwidth, the demand, moving from 200 people logging on to, you know, 15,000.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of a jump. So we've had, the great news is, you know, we're finally in the process now working with just a great local resource. I don't know if you know Amos Kittleson with Sidewalk Technologies. I believe you do. They were housed there with your station.
Absolutely.
And Amos is one of the few folks in this region that really has the skills, the knowledge, the experience base to help us make this a reality. And so we're just in the process of getting final approval now through corporate for a new high-end capture system for our programs. And then we've been working with our national Acadia folks on the distribution end. And we're going to bring, I think sometime we'll test drive it here this summer if everything goes well. And then by this fall, we will be broadcasting this information, you know, live, two-way, high definition, right to people's desktop, phone, smartphone, iPhone, you know, from coast to coast, which to me is just, it's exciting stuff.
Absolutely.
So we've been working on that, I think, as a vision since last November, and it takes time to kind of make sure that we're putting this thing, the pieces together, so that we're doing it right, and we're going to deliver a high-quality production and you know, product to the end user. And so that's been a big deal. And we're actually, I don't know if you heard, you know, the bakery is transitioning here, and so our location, which will still be here for this month's April Partners, starting in May, we, you know, the good news is you're going to have new neighbors out there at the radio station, because we're actually going to build this. Yeah, we're going to build the broadcast station, this technology station with Sidewalk Technologies assistants and all their just skills and all that. We're actually going to be building out that broadcast room out the STI building out where you're located. So we'll be neighbors.
I'm excited about
Partners in Education broadcast. Yeah. So lots of stuff going on. You know, in addition to, you know, the facility is full, and it's that time of year now where the demand for services go up system-wide. And we're doing the best we can with, you the team, and I think you've met a majority of these folks, if not all of them, and spent some time with them. We're just doing the best we can to try to get people the help they need. And if Keystone is a waiting list, that we're doing our best to find services for them and get them placed somewhere and get some help. So it's a busy, very good time of year, and as always, it's good to spend time with you.
Well, it's always a pleasure to visit with you as well. We've got Eric Miller on the line right now. He is with Keystone Treatment Center. Coming up in a moment, we're going to be visiting with another gentleman from Keystone Treatment Center. We've got Brad Patterson on the way. Brad is a post-treatment engagement coordinator, and he'll be doing the bulk of the presentation tomorrow at the Partners in Education event, and it is at 11:30 till 1 o'clock at the bakery in downtown Sioux Falls, so it's still at the bakery this month. And then, like Eric was just mentioning, we've got a new location, and we'll talk about that again after we're done visiting with Brad, so stick around. I'll be calling back to visit with Eric again, and we'll give you all of the details on that one. But if you'd like to tune in, you can. If you want to watch this from elsewhere, you can still watch live through the live stream. And again, that's thebakerysf.com/live. All of those details also on our Facebook page to make it really simple and really easy. But again, if you'd like to watch it live, or if you want to go to the event live at 11:30 tomorrow, 11:30 to 1 at the bakery downtown Sioux Falls, or online live at thebakerysf.com/live. Coming up in a moment, we're going to be visiting with Brad Patterson, and that is on the way on Partners in Education for this April.
Keystone Treatment Center would like to help you kick your addiction. Whether you struggle with drugs, alcohol, or some other addiction, Keystone may be able to help you find freedom. Call our toll-free number to learn more at 1-844-204-1055. Thousands of success stories from clients all over the country. Be the next success story. Get the help you need from Keystone Treatment Center. Chances are your addiction will not go away on its own. Get the pain to stop and let freedom begin. It starts with a call, 1-844-204-1055.
Again, thank you for listening to Partners in Education for April 2017. Super excited to visit with Brad Patterson. He is our guest right now. We just finished chatting with Eric from Keystone, and Brad is also with Keystone. He is a post-treatment engagement coordinator. Brad, how are you, sir?
Doing well. It's great to talk to you, John.
It's great to talk to you as well. And the April program, you're going to be kind of the ringleader and going through and doing the presentation. And we're real excited to learn about the 7 essential elements of recovery because, like the title says, relapse is not a requirement of good recovery. And I agree with that 100%. So if we can avoid the relapse and just focus on those 7 essential elements of recovery, that's a good thing, isn't it?
Well, it is. And here's the interesting thing. And I don't exactly know why. This has been an evolution of the 21st century treatment, but a lot of providers equate relapse as standard to recovery, and it most certainly is not. Relapse really describes a departure from the recommended suggestions that will guide people towards a lasting sobriety with peace of mind. We call recovery sobriety with peace of mind. And so essentially it is much more than just remaining sober. A person who finds themselves chronically relapsing is most likely not engaged in the recommendations that we're going to talk about today.
As we look at these 7 essential elements of recovery, let's start at the very first one, number 1. And I see on here it says sobriety and 12-step transformation. So let's talk a little more in depth about what that first step looks like.
Well, a lot of people misunderstand, especially non-addicted individuals, about what takes place at a recovery meeting. And not all meetings are the same. What we've actually seen, though many other alternative meetings have evolved, is that the most lasting and transformative, impactful to the addict set of instructions comes from 12-step recovery. The 12-step recovery community has been around since 1939, and since that time has helped, just through Narcotics Anonymous and Alcoholics Anonymous, has helped to sober up almost 5 million people.
Wow. That is awesome.
Now, I'm not speaking on behalf of Narcotics Anonymous or Alcoholics Anonymous. These are historic and facts that can be cross-referenced across the board. All I'm doing is citing that as far as a transformative strategy that leads people from true addiction to serenity with peace of mind and sobriety, the 12-step solution is the most direct strategy. One would even argue that it is the easiest and softest way. And for people who are not familiar with recovery, this is just a kind of a strange set of statements. But for those people who have loosely explored recovery, they can get a little bit obstinate to some of these claims because essentially they may not have had the experience. But anybody who has not fully had the experience that is available through 12-step recovery may not have actually followed all the instructions. And there are many instructions that are guided through the 12 steps that do need to all be in place before one can assess whether or not this strategy is not efficient or effective for them. It's extraordinarily rare that if somebody actually does their due diligence and follows the 12 steps of recovery, that they will not have the promised transformation. And this transformation literally is this simple. We go from being uncontrollably addicted to a drug of choice or multiple drugs of choice, and they will move towards, slowly over time, a place where their cravings, their obsessions are literally removed from them through the process of working the 12 steps.
And when you're looking at those 12 steps, each step within that one, right now we're talking about the 7 essential elements of recovery, and this is just one of the essential elements, but each one of those 12 steps are important on their own, aren't they?
Well, not only are they important, but they really build upon each other. And classically, for people who have explored or just investigated 12 steps of recovery, they've actually been selective, and maybe they'll work a step here or they'll work a step there, and they expect to get some partial success from working a partial step program. And unfortunately, they really do build on each other, and there is a consummation by the end that needs all the other steps to have been worked. The most important thing that I will say is that if you are new to this process, give yourself 8 weeks. Talk with people that have been successful in recovery. Don't try to get advice from somebody who thinks that 12-step recovery does not work, because essentially that's going to misguide you. But you want to gravitate towards what would be a personal guide or sponsor that can really help you to begin the process of working the 12 steps in earnest. All of this is very much available, and the Keystone family will provide further information for anybody who needs more information on working the steps. But we have many more essential elements of recovery to touch base, and I don't want to necessarily just talk about the 12 steps.
Absolutely. There are a lot of people who have had very good success with this, and if you're talking to them, they're going to do everything they can to help you rise above. But anybody that's tried this and has failed, they're going to try to pull you down. So you're going to want to make sure you're talking to people who've had success with it. And like you were saying, having a sponsor is a really good idea, and having people around you, surrounding yourself with positive influences are a very good thing. Let's talk now about number 2 as we look at the 7 essential elements of recovery. I see on here number 2 is post-treatment continuing care. I'll let you tell us a little more about that.
Yes, I am so proud to be a part of the community in Sioux Falls that has such great continuing care. The continuing care in Sioux Falls is honestly some of the best in the country, and we have great halfway houses, and we have great outpatient programs, and we have great continuing care for aftercare. We have great mental health counselors, and we have great chemical dependency counselors. I'm going to talk about the various spectrums of potential care. And essentially, when a person gets done with an inpatient treatment care, this is where they leave their home, they leave their work, and they spend, between 30 to 90 days in a stay-away facility to help them really engage well with their beginning of recovery. They will then come home to further care. What I love to say is that the time at Keystone Inpatient is their revolutionary beginning to prepare them for the start of recovery. It is a chronic illness, and it's going to take a chronic assault, and we will not be giving this up over a short period of time. Once time in Canton, the inpatient program, is completed, they will have upwards of a year and a half of continuing care. What we will do with this is we may go to a halfway house, and a halfway house will be a slightly lower intensity residential care component or residential care provider that will provide housing and some structured meetings and some on-site counseling that is available to their clients. We highly recommend for all of our clients to consider, when appropriate, a halfway house, because this will help them transition from the very supportive environment of an inpatient treatment facility to the real world. Ultimately, they can't remain in inpatient treatment centers forever, and they're going to have to transition and take ownership of their own personal recovery, and the halfway house is a beautiful place to start. We've got a couple of great programs in town, and the reality is that when the person fully engages with the halfway house opportunity, they're going to get a stronger outcome of their early recovery. The likelihood of relapse goes down. There are some services offered in halfway houses, which would be essential treatment at various levels, and the assignment of the various levels of continuing treatment is dependent on the severity of addiction. So when they are ready to transition from inpatient care, which is upwards of 40 hours of clinical care each week, they will figure out what the right level of step down is, and they may go into a program that would be like day treatment, which could be up to 20 hours a week as they continue on their journey towards their ownership of recovery. And they will basically attend groups either at the halfway house or not. They can live at home or live at a halfway house and do this day treatment program. They will basically be in groups about 5 days a week and 4 hours each day. If they don't need that level of care, then the next level might be an outpatient care, which can be done under a halfway house or residing at home. And this might be 9 hours of continuing care for a period of about 6 to 8 weeks, depending on the program. Some outpatient programs can be as long as 16 weeks. And to be honest with you, I tell my clients that it should never be thought of as an obligation to get this assignment to step down. It's actually more of a privilege that they will be supported further into their early recovery. The final clinical care that's collectively joined in on in the spectrum is what we call aftercare, and aftercare is a 1 to 3 hour a week assignment where people are further along down their personal ownership of recovery, and they're checking in for accountability and for the final pieces of education from the clinical side. I always love to celebrate the mental health support that's available in our town, and there are various group support meetings, which I didn't actually mention in the 12-step, the first essential element. Essentially, if you can get group support for mental health, that is also a wonderful way to make a solid foundation for your recovery. And individual mental health appointments or group mental health appointments are extremely valuable to the overall taking ownership of your personal recovery. Any individual relationship you can establish with counseling during that first year is going to be really meaningful.
Absolutely. Again, our guest right now for this month's edition of Partners in Education, Relapse is not a requirement of good recovery. The guest today, Brad Patterson, Post-Treatment Engagement Coordinator with Keystone. Now, we've gotten through the first two. We're on to number 3. in the 7 essential elements of recovery. And number 3 is family and community. And this is a very important element, isn't it?
Yes. One of the things that I outline is what relationships have to change when we begin early recovery. And the answer to this is all of them.
Yeah.
Now, I share that there are 4 relationships that really change. And that is our relationship with our drug of choice, our relationship with ourselves, our relationship with our family, friends, and community, and most importantly, our relationship with God or our higher power. When we come into recovery, all the components of addiction were based in deceived relationships. We thought we had to do this and continue our use. We thought we had to keep our secrets. We thought we had to be angry. We thought we had to be terribly sad. We thought we had all of these bondages that were requirements of our life, and they were all complicated and intertwined through all of our relationships. For the most part, a lot of people come into a place like Keystone having done much damage through the relationships that they are blessed with, and this becomes a huge shame that they feel like they have to address before they address recovery. And the reality is it's just the opposite. We actually need to recover to allow the relationships also be transformed along with us. And the worst thing about the process of recovery, just to be very honest, is for most part, our most important relationships change the most slowly. Oftentimes we'll get really excellent support from people and acquaintances at work, even within 6 weeks of graduating from treatment. And people can see the change, but our friends and family that are most close to us have had to weather our most severe storms, even tornadoes that we've imposed on their lives. And so they are going to be wanting a lot of tangible proof as we move down the road of personal recovery. And this does happen. These changes do take place. Relationships are healed across the board. But again, just like I said that we can't try to fix the relationships before we get recovery, we can't even begin recovery before we plug into this higher power. And this higher power begins the journey of changing, most importantly, our relationship with ourselves.
And that's very important, and each one of those relationships matter. But that one, the last one you mentioned, the relationship we have with ourselves, is such an important thing. As we take a look now at number 4 on the 7 essential elements of recovery, number 4 I see is one that kind of surprises me, but I guess after you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. It says diet and fitness and sleep. That's something that I wouldn't have expected to see on this list, but after thinking about it, it does make a ton of sense, doesn't it?
Well, this is the most important thing. There is current research being done with regard to the brain-damaging neurology that ends up just before we get into treatment. The addict and alcoholic starve their brain of essential elements to build structured thinking, okay? And there is a thesis going around very recently in the last 7 to 10 years that addicts are essentially starved in their brain, and they're starved for a couple of reasons. They're starved because they're not getting food nutrients, and they're not getting restorative sleep. And the reality is that they simply say that if we feed very well, we can strengthen the brain, and we can prepare for a healthy, non-addictive lifestyle. It takes, unfortunately, almost 1 full year of healthy diet and fitness and proper sleep to honestly see our brains come back to what levels would be before we started to drink and use. Compulsive gambling has the same kind of neurological transformations over severe abuse. And the reality is even adrenaline junkies can show some of these damaging qualities. The fact is, if you're literally an addict to adrenaline, you can have very similar neurological tendencies as like a meth addict. And so what they basically say is absolutely a wonderful diet which has got lean proteins, lots of lean proteins for brain redevelopment. The wonderful component of fitness is that it's rewarding your brain with tangible endorphins that will help you to re-experience what it's like to live a balanced and enjoyable mental experience. And the sleep component, and this is the deep sleep from REM, is absolutely one of the most important brain-building resources that we have. And the sad thing is that it often takes up to 6 months for somebody leaving drugs and alcohol to actually get to full sleep. They literally have to relearn how to sleep, so they're initially not getting very good restorative REM sleep, and the essential issue with that is that they are at their most vulnerable in these early months. So it's for the person in their first 6 months of recovery before they get to that wonderful restorative REM sleep that they really need to be diligent about meetings and sponsorship and talking with other people in recovery, because they're going to be jittery from lack of sleep all by itself.
Well, it's fascinating to think about those three things, those three elements, and how they fit in here. And like I said, at first blush, it didn't make sense to me, but as you explained it, it makes so much more sense. And it even made sense when I started thinking about it before you explained it, but I appreciate you explaining that in full detail. Again, visiting right now with Brad Patterson, Post-Treatment Engagement Coordinator with Keystone, and he'll be the speaker at the event this month for Partners in Education. And our title this month is Relapse is Not a Requirement of Good Recovery. And right now we are working our way through the 7 essential elements of recovery. We're up to number 5, finances and employment. And I can definitely see where this comes into play. So let's talk a little more about finances and employment.
The issue with finances and employment is the place that it takes in our early recovery. Finance is absolutely necessary, and the reality is that a lot of us have created a majority of our addiction tornadoes due to the fact that we have been financially deceived, and we have allowed our addictions and drugs of choice or compulsive gambling to be our total center of devotion of our finances. It's always humorous when I do surveys. How many of our addicts and alcoholics will spend their last dollar to get higher drunk? How many of our addicts and alcoholics and compulsive gamblers will not pay bills or rent because they want to get high or drunk? If you ask these questions at treatment, almost all the hands go up. And so we've had this devotion to basically throwing our money away towards a cause that was killing us. And when we get out without guidance, we believe that the only way to restore our life is to make a ton of money and to be able to demonstrate to all those people that are looking at us that we are now, quote-unquote, successful financially. However, this is a dire track to take. It basically tells us through years of experience that a person who places their priority on getting financially fit before they get spiritually fit in recovery, they most certainly will find their demise and end up relapsing. The problem is that we will not sustain good recovery by being financially fit. We can only sustain good recovery through the transformation that comes from following all these essential elements.
Absolutely. And as we're working our way through the 7 essential elements of recovery, right now we're up to number 6. And this is one that, again, this is going to be something that's really close to many people because it's romance, intimate relationships, and close friends. And this is a very personal matter. And how does that plug into the 7 essential elements of recovery.
So I'm going to basically share this, John, as real as it gets. When somebody comes out of a drug relationship or alcoholic relationship with their drug of choice, there is this short period, painful period of detoxification. Detoxification takes any place between 7 and about 14 days. What we actually have seen, I'll just mention with some of the synthetic marijuanas, is that the detoxification process is not working so well at all. I want to basically say that there are certain drugs that you just don't really detox from. And so the reason why I mention this is it's not necessarily going to apply to somebody who still has a foggy head. But the first thing that happens when a person experiences true sobriety after detox is this weird mental twist. Oh my gosh, I'm sober. What else can I do to feel an experience of rush or, what can I get high on? That's literally kind of the automatic response of the recently detoxed brain. What can I get high on? And almost split second later, there is this concept of sex. And unfortunately, much like finance, sex in early recovery has a huge distracting influence away from solid recovery principles. Now, I need to basically share that the only people that this doesn't apply to are people who amazingly come into early recovery still married, okay? And the fact is, it's not as many as you think. Most of us have created such wreckage that we don't have relationships. But when somebody comes into early recovery and they are not married, the idea or the drive, I really want to say the hunger or drive to connect can be almost overwhelming. And the thing is that unfortunately, it literally will draw away from the early efforts in 12 steps. We talk about something in 12-step recovery called the 13th step, and that is going to 12-step meetings to find dates. 12-step meetings are not Match.com. They're not eHarmony. To be honest with you, the people there are trying to get well, not trying to get dates. And ultimately, what we have to do is guide people in early recovery to give themselves a chance to let all these essential elements find their founded placement in our foundation so that we can rise and be transformed to a new level of attractiveness. Guys, John, I've got to just tell you, that one of the promises that comes from this process is that we addicts and alcoholics can actually become more attractive to the right people if we simply give ourselves time to fully realize the benefits of lasting recovery.
That's a wonderful thing, and I also think by doing that, by waiting, there's a little phrase that you learn when you're a little kid. They say, good things come to those who wait. And, by doing that and waiting till you're ready, I think that not only are you going to be ready, but your relationship is going to probably last a whole lot longer as well, won't it?
Yes. One of the things I haven't mentioned is that we are under the influence as addicts and alcoholics, even when we're not high and drunk. And this influence dissipates as we work the steps, as we move forward towards the last essential element of spirituality. But essentially, the problem is if we race, we are actually deceived by what is attractive and what choices we should make. Just like we were deceived by the choice to drink and use, relationally, we are greatly deceived in early recovery to make choices that are going to probably set us up for relapse. And that's the funny thing, is that we think that we have a drinking and drug-using problem. We don't. We have a drinking and drug-using solution to a thinking problem, and we usually try to set ourselves up with such sabotage living that we are forced to go back to our old solution of drinking and using. And this is most prevalent in the realm of new relationships.
Again, our guest today, Brad Patterson, Post-Treatment Engagement Coordinator with Keystone, and we're going to be wrapping up our 7 essential elements of recovery as we get to the final step, number 7, spirituality and balance. And again, I think this is a pretty great step, and it's a very important step, so let's talk a little bit about this one.
Well, the ironic or paradoxical point that it's the last essential element is not accurate. To be honest with you, it's the omnipresent element. And we actually begin our earnest effort in recovery with the humble consideration that there is a power greater than ourselves that might help us, that might like us. For so long, addicts, alcoholics, compulsive gamblers, and other obsessions have been under the deceptive influence of their drug or behavior of choice. And when we discover the power, the true power of a higher power, what we actually do is carefully start to explore how this starts to help us. This can encourage us forward. This can help us with new insight. This can help us to essentially find a very relevant purpose in a complicated 21st century. I like to share the very practical example, and this frustrates some. I don't mean to be controversial, but essentially higher power is exactly that. John, if you turn the lights off in your office, you'd be sitting in the dark. But if you allow the power of electricity to go through the lights in your office, you have light. When the lights are off, it doesn't mean the lights are bad. It's just that they're without power. And essentially, our recovery is higher power driven. It can't be imitated without the higher power connection, and it can't be achieved by us imitating what we think the higher power would do. That's still being under the influence of our drugs of choice. We basically resist, and it is the most important or easy thing to actually ultimately surrender to once we get to that point of surrender. But this tends to be the sticking point for most people in their journey through recovery, is that they just don't want to have to admit that they need help. But the reality is no person in recovery has ever achieved this lasting serenity, sobriety, and peace of mind without incredible support or empowerment from their higher power.
Fantastic. Again, Brad Patterson has been our guest today. Brad, thank you so much for visiting with us, and I'm excited for everybody that's going to be at Partners in Education, the live event at the bakery in downtown Sioux Falls, because they're going to get to see you do this live and in living color. But we appreciate you taking some time today to give us a brief overview here on the radio, and I know during the event tomorrow you're going to have an opportunity to delve into each of these a little bit more. But again, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us about it right now.
I do appreciate it, and we will look forward to seeing you all at Partners in Education.
Again, Partners in Education for April. The topic this month, relapse is not a requirement of good recovery. And we just went through a portion of it, the 7 essential elements of recovery. In a moment, we're going to wrap things up with another visit with Eric Miller, and he is with Keystone Treatment Center as well. We'll be back with Eric right after this. Thanks for listening to Partners in Education on Sunny Radio.
Keystone Treatment Center would like to help you kick your addiction. Whether you struggle with drugs, alcohol, or some other addiction, Keystone may be able to help you find freedom. Call our toll-free number to learn more at 1-844-204-1055. Thousands of success stories from clients all over the country. Be the next success story. Get the help you need from Keystone Treatment Center. Chances are your addiction will not go away on its own. Get the pain to stop and let freedom begin. It starts with a call, 1-844-204-1055.
Join us for Pie at the Bakery. That's Partners in Education, sponsored by Keystone Treatment Center, NAMI, and the Bakery. This month's program is at the Bakery in downtown Sioux Falls. This event is free and even counts towards continuing education units with 1.5 CEUs from NADAC. If you or someone you know has an addiction, Keystone Treatment Center would like to help. Chances are your addiction will not go away on its own. Get the pain to stop and let the freedom begin. It starts with a call, 1-844-204-1055. That's toll free, 1-844-204-1055. Join us for Pie at the Bakery. That's Partners in Education. This event is free and we'll even have pie. Come early for pie and hors d'oeuvres. The bakery is located at 910 North Main Avenue in downtown Sioux Falls, or log in and watch the live streaming at thebakerysf.com/live.
And welcome back to Partners in Education. We appreciate you joining us. Once again on the line, we have Eric Miller from Keystone Treatment Center. Eric, thanks for joining me again, sir.
Yeah, John.
And now, one of the things that I want to kind of visit with you a little bit about here is Keystone Treatment Center. That's kind of the standard. That is the gold standard when it comes to having, if you have an addiction and you need some help. Keystone is a name that's known not just in the Sioux Falls area, not just in the Sioux City area, but in the entire country. That's a name that people know and trust, and that really, one of the things that sets you guys apart is the history that you have and the attention to detail that you have. But that's not something that you find everywhere, is it?
No, it's not. And in fact, that's part of, why we value this opportunity with the partnership and the Partners in Education series is trying to get good information out there to folks. Because what we're really dealing with here is life and death issues. And we are kind of in this age of the internet and, where I can Google almost anything and instantaneously receive information, is that, there's no filters built into that on how good or valuable or valid that information that we're obtaining from those searches. And the same thing is in our industry. Part of what this, focus is would show scientifically that from a treatment process that, that 12-step model is twice as successful long-term in desired outcomes, which is continued sobriety and recovery for people, and it comes at half the cost. And, and yet in this day and age, you could Google things on the 12 steps, and there's all kinds of disinformation on there that it doesn't work, and, that it's a cult, and, just all over the map in terms of people that are counter to that message, but yet they don't offer really any clear alternative that does work. So to me, it's just critical that we try to get good information out and, be available as resources for folks. And we work every day each day, each week, 7 days, 24 hours a day. We're available as that resource Keystone is and has been now for over 40 years. So I'm just really grateful and honored to kind of be a part of that process. But it is critical, and I think, why shows like what we're doing here are critical, is to get that good information out and to combat some of the disinformation that we come into contact with each day out there in the field.
Well, and the sad thing is, there are people that with the internet, you can say things on the internet that are not true. Did you know that?
Yeah. So I guess you can say it over radio waves too. It's just amazing some of the things as I travel through our main 11 state, where we have direct marketing efforts for Keystone alone, let alone Acadia, which is, we're the largest treatment mental health provider on the planet, of just the type of information and messaging that a person can hear out there being presented as if, it's factual or it's scientific, and it's just not.
Well, and that's the nice thing about with this particular company, with Keystone, with Acadia, is they're not going to give misinformation. They're going to give true information, and they truly do want to help, and they've been around a long time, and you don't become one of the leading names in this industry by doing it the wrong way. You get that, you earn that by doing it the right way. And I commend you guys for all the help that you've given hundreds of people, thousands of people over the last 40 years. That's something you need to be very proud of.
Yeah, we have over 23,000 alumni from our inpatient treatment program alone. And
wow.
And again, I'm willing to we're always willing to learn and listen and to counter ideas. But, to me, it's more important is, what do you base that argument on, or what do you base that information on? Is it factual or not? Do you present, alternatives that scientific? And to this point, the simplicity And the power of these 12 steps has changed so many lives, and it's probably in this century, the past 100 years, is probably the most impactful approach for dealing with addiction and alcoholism that ever touched this planet.
Well, it was fun to visit with Brad, and Eric, it was great to catch up with you again, and we'll talk again next month.
Yeah, John, you have yourself a great rest of your day, sir.
Definitely. And again, that is Eric Miller right there with Keystone Treatment Center. Coming up tomorrow, we have our next edition of Partners in Education. Earlier, we heard from Brad Patterson, Post-Treatment Engagement Coordinator, also with Keystone Treatment Center. And this month's program is Relapse is Not a Requirement of Good Recovery. And we're going to talk a little bit about the 12 steps, but we're going to talk a lot about the 7 foundations of recovery, because the 12 steps are important, but these 7 foundations of recovery are extremely important. And again, you're going to learn all about those tomorrow. Now, if you'd like to go, I'm going to give you a free invitation right now. Here's your invitation to join us for Partners in Education. Now, this is the final program that will be at the Bakery in downtown Sioux Falls. Doesn't mean it's the final program, just means it's the final program that's going to be there. If you'd like to join us live and in person, you might want to come down there tomorrow. It's on North Main Avenue, downtown Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and it's at a place called the Bakery. Now, that's going to be happening from 11:30 until 1. So if you want to come down a little bit early, have some pie at the Bakery, that's the best part about going live, is you get to go and be a part of that and have some delicious pie and some yummy lunch. Now, for those of you that can't make it there, maybe you're going to do a little brown bag at your desk and have lunch there and just watch from a distance. You can do that as well online at thebakerysf.com/live. Again, thebakerysf.com/live, and you'll be able to live stream the video, and that again is going to be happening at the same time, of course, since it is live, tomorrow. And we've got all of the details for the program, all of the details for the live streaming, and all of the details for Partners in Education on our Facebook page, facebook.com/Sunny Radio. Thank you so much for listening to another edition of Partners in Education, brought to you by Keystone Treatment Center, NAMI, and the Bakery. You're listening to Sunny Radio, where it's always in the 80s.